Hurricane season. We're tracking the tropics in sunny Central Florida. I'm West 2 meteorologist Eric Burris.
And in Savannah, Georgia, I'm WJCL 22 Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Nelson.
So, Jeremy, I feel like, this time of year we always know that the tropics it could be hit or miss, but the last couple of shows, if you will, for tracking the tropics Tuesdays, we've had a couple of things to talk about.
Yeah, last week live we had Andrea named, and then we moved into this past weekend and we had Barry. So we've actually had two named storms now, both very short lived. And then we're keeping an eye on maybe something new for later this week.
That's right. That's right. So here's a look at what we are tracking at this moment. This is the wide shot of the Atlantic basin. No problems out there whatsoever. Looking a little closer to Florida, though, there is an area of interest, not necessarily over the next couple of days' time, but more over a broader scale, 7 days' time. National Hurricane Center highlighting that area in yellow there as having a 30% likelihood for tropical development. Essentially as an old front, and this is the way that things can go sometimes. You get an old front kind of diving south a little bit and dying. And essentially, as it does that, Jeremy, you have the opportunity to hop something up tropically.
Yeah, and as we were talking, not there's no one model that's really impressive with this. It's probably going to boost rain chances more down in your area versus up by mine, but you can sometimes get those little lows that form along this. I don't think we have any huge concern right now. Probably your biggest concern would be if some sort of low does form and it just funnels some heavier rains over the same locations
Right.
as we go through late week.
Well, and it's a holiday weekend, right? So I think that there's a lot of people here that have, worries, that have concerns about how this is going to play in. And so, when we talk about the opportunities for rain across our area, this is a look at the Central Florida forecast for this weekend. 70% coverage of rain on Friday, 70% coverage of rain on Saturday. And then on Sunday, things begin to taper off, but that yellow icon there on each day denotes impact weather, meaning that the coverage is going to be high enough. We think that it's going to be impactful. So for us, yes. Um, are we concerned about a hurricane hitting Central Florida? No. But are we concerned about a sloppy low really impacting our holiday? I think that that's an absolutely valid question and concern.
Yeah, and again, that is your forecast you're looking at there. For anyone, you get north of basically the Georgia Florida state line. I had rain chances Friday, Saturday, Sunday, more in like the 20 to 30% because up here, farther north you get, we're a little bit north of that low.
Right.
Maybe even if a low forms, we spin in more of a north or northeast wind. So potentially we could see a little bit drier air up here. So our rain chance is not quite as high. And at the moment, it does not look like we would have any of those supersized rain totals.
Well, and to that point, it's kind of interesting too, Jeremy, because it depends on what model you look at, right? Because some models are wanting to go absolutely bonkers with rainfall in my area, some models don't. So here's, for example, a look. I'm going to share with you the American model versus the European model, and you can really clearly see the difference. And I would also add that as we're getting new model data, they're kind of backing off. But through Tuesday of next week, they're saying widespread 1 to 2 inches of rain, with some spots getting 2 to 3, even 3 to 5. So it's not a significant flooding concern, but there are concerns of some spots with flooding, if that makes sense at all.
Right, and it's sometimes like the fire hose effect. If you do get like a weak low somewhere, it can funnel maybe one more confined area of rain over the Florida Peninsula. Right now, it looks like you're bookended by all the showers and thunderstorms kind of around you. But
Right.
if anything does form, it's probably late this week into the weekend. So again, 30% chance. I was telling all my viewers the last couple days, do not change any outdoor plans in my
Right.
area because I think you'd probably be disappointed if you did because we'll get to the weekend and it's just almost like a normal summer day.
Well, and that's the struggle, right? Because a lot of people see rising rain chances, particularly in my area, and they're like, "Should I cancel?" We have Disney down here, for example, and it's like, "Should we cancel the plans?" It's like, no. First off, to your viewers, um, Disney is super great while it's raining, so I would highly
Yes.
suggest that. First off, but second off, yeah, the whole idea is The confidence is low in our forecasting with this because we have to see, first off, what side of the peninsula were a low to develop. Once it develops, does it try to get strong? Because if you get a low developing just off the coast, it could start slurping in moisture and pulling in that drier air to your area, to my area. I've seen it happen 1,000 times where there's a low right off of my coastline and we are sitting boiling hot and dry because it's taking all the available moisture away.
Yeah, especially if it may be east of Florida versus west.
Right.
If it's west of you, you may funnel in a little more Gulf moisture. If it's
Yeah.
off to your east, then you're on maybe a little bit drier side of it. So again, it's something we'll be watching, but uh, lowish concern for anywhere north of Florida right now. I'm not
Right.
going to discard any of your rain chances. I'll let you handle that. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is like you said. I think you said it best. This is not looking like a hurricane or anything close to it.
Right.
Not a wind event. This is more just increased rain chances.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were talking about that this morning on my coffee talk broadcast about how my area is still in a bit of a rainfall deficit. We've got some spots, Jeremy, like Melbourne, Daytona Beach, for example. They are 6, almost 7 inches of rain behind where they should be. And climatologically, Central Florida, and I'd be curious if if your area is the same, but my area depends on a weak, sloppy low at least in terms of the rainfall. We need something like this every year just to keep up with our norms. So this is a very normal scenario, particularly early hurricane season.
Yeah, about the last 2 weeks here in Savannah, our rain has been very hit or miss, and for the most part, it has just completely missed Savannah.
Right.
So yesterday was either day 12 or 13 in a row where we've not had measurable rain.
Yeah.
So June did finish 2.77 inches below average for us.
Right.
So we could use some rain across our area. I'm not going to wish it upon a holiday weekend.
Right.
Maybe hold off until Monday or Tuesday once we get past that,
Right.
and then we get some rain in here. But yeah, I mean, people see the National Hurricane Center. They highlighted that area of yellow, kind of raises an alarm. I mean, we've been through a lot here the last few years. We've had Idalia,
Yeah.
Milton, Debbie, Helene.
Right.
So people have been trained to, when they see that, pay attention, which is awesome. But then it's our job to sort of dial that back a little bit and be like, okay, let's step back. Here's what probably is most likely to happen.
Well, and to that point too, it's important to also discuss what those impacts would be as dialed in, as hyper local as we can. And I think that by having this two-way street where we can talk and then folks can ask us questions, I think that that definitely helps. I put this up just to let everybody know, should this become rain with a name, Chantal is the next name on the list for what it's worth.
Yeah, and we've had two name storms which were very short-lived. I think about 12 hours,
Yep.
give or take,
Right.
for each of them, Andrea and Barry. And then the ACE, which is accumulated cyclonic energy, that's only it's still below a one, and I think our average is around like 2.6 or something at
Yeah.
this time. So
Yep.
names are above average, the ACE is below average, and really these numbers, unless we get something big brewing, don't mean a lot until we almost get to the peak season. So
Right.
we'll see how things play out.
Yeah, yeah. So, and you were talking about it. So, point 0.6 ace, 2.5 is the average. But last year on today's date, we had 10.7 ace points because remember that B named storm ended up being a big storm last year.
Right.
And as you had mentioned, Jeremy, talking about the numbers, the average is 1.3 named storms through today. We've had two. Last year, we'd had three. So, yeah, it just kind of depends on what metric you look at. But I think the overarching idea here is no matter how active or inactive, it only impacts you if it impacts you. And we're watching the potential for something to get going. Thankfully, it doesn't look like it's going to be anything too strong. I think that's the bottom line there.
Yep. And last year, we then sort of had a name drought because Debbie the fourth name storm did not really come until we got into the start of August
Right.
last year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So we're starting to get some questions in. Brittany's asking, "Will travel be okay on the third? My kids come back from Ohio at 7 at night." So without knowing Brittany where you are exactly, she's on one of my pages. I would just say, on the third, it's going to be rain. There's going to be rain the next couple of days. We're not forecasting a hurricane. Okay, that's not the expectation. As a matter of fact, Jeremy, let's just take that and let's look at some of the model data.
Okay.
just to kind of get an idea of what they're saying. Because when I was looking this morning, I was very unimpressed. Okay, so here's the raw GFS, and you can see those blue shades. So that's a front kind of dropping south, and it's going to want to try and deposit a piece of energy. But that's it. That's Saturday morning, barely anything of a low. I mean, barely. And then right here,
Right.
that's Monday late afternoon. That's some sort of a super weak, sloppy low moving away from Florida, kind of off of your coast, Jeremy, at that point. But it's not even a deepened low. It's just a very, very subtle piece of energy. It's a little subtle feature.
Right. So I think another impact, and this would be probably for your eastern beaches and then also for the beaches up in my area, if we did see some sort of even a very weak low off the southeast coast, throw rain, throw wind out of the mix. What we'd have to watch for, especially a holiday weekend, is rip currents.
Right.
We get a big issue with those when we start getting more of the east or northeast winds. So a lot of people visiting aren't familiar with rip currents. Really need to pay attention when you go to the beach at the lifeguards, and you can even ask them if you don't know what the flags mean that are flying out there. Just go say, hey, what's the rip current risk? And if it's medium high, stay close to the beach.
Yeah. Well, and people lose their lives because of rip currents. So don't write
Yeah,
that stuff off, right? All right. So this is
no.
this is the GFS. Let's switch over. Let's look at the European. I'm going to reset it. There's the front trying to deposit, and it just keeps broad. It doesn't really close anything off, but and
And
then
that's the blue. The blue is
right,
what we're kind of focusing in there. And notice
right.
how that is more over the Florida Peninsula
Yep.
or kind of bookending that.
Yeah, yeah. So to that point, it's this model is not. And then it's kind of interesting. It kind of shows up a little feature south of Bermuda there around Monday of next week. European doing something interesting. Let's look at the ensemble plots. Okay, we'll start with the GFS ensembles. Give me a few seconds. Multi-member pressure, rise minimums. Okay, all right. So GFS, there's the front. It's showing some lowered pressure, but no genuine closed lows until like Sunday when it's pulling away from Florida off the coast of the Outer Banks. So that's the GFS. All right, the European ensemble. We'll roll through time. There's the front. The European is what's interesting. Look at that, how the European is showing those features and then bringing them in. So to that point, some of the ensemble plots there, Jeremy, are a little more interesting, I think, for your area come
Right.
late weekend into early next week.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we could push it late, get it away from the holiday weekend, that would be great. And even if it does take more of that northerly track, it would maybe just boost our rain chances here. But you start getting things north of, let's say, Charleston, and that would probably be spinning some dry air back towards us.
Yep.
Um, so anything north of Charleston doesn't really probably deliver much of any impact to our area.
Which, you know, sounds like you've had plenty of rain recently. One more thing, just want to look. We now have European AI, the AI model ensemble plots. And so you can kind of see it's trying to bring some members alive east and west of Florida, but the vast majority of them are kind of scraping up along the eastern seaboard. So, the Euro AI may try to show a little more rain for you, Jeremy, but I think that the overall idea here is we don't have this dialed in yet. It's systems that are sloppy, systems that are weak. They're difficult to really get going, right?
Yes. And those lows that you were showing there, they were fairly weak, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Barely, not even denoted as lows on the ensembles. Barely.
Okay. So again, even though that may have shown some low pressure areas at the moment, looking weak, water temperatures, we're now up to 86 degrees off our coastline. Typically in the summer, we peak maybe 88,
Yep.
briefly 89, but
Yep.
probably 86 to 88 is where we stay most of our peak water temperatures. So 86 degrees, that's pretty warm for our area, and it's been holding there the last several days.
So we know, we know once you get it going, it's going to get going. And I'm talking about a season, right? So we know that we are still fairly quiet. Even though we are through two named storms, we have not had anything significant. We've had two super short-lived tropical storms. So I think we're starting to see indications that the season wants to ramp up. And once we rid ourselves of plenty of that Saharan dust, once we get into an active phase, um, this season's going to get going, right? With the water temperatures, as you're discussing, and the like. And people are asking about water temperatures. So I guess, Jeremy, I should probably pull that up here.
Yeah, and I'm guessing a week from now when we talk, that northeastern Gulf or off the southeast coast may cool a bit, pending what happens over about the next 5 to 7, 8 days. You could get a lot of thunderstorms, kind of churn the water up a bit, bring up a little bit of that water below. That could cool things off, but that's in the grand scheme of things in the Atlantic Basin. That'll eventually probably fill back in pretty quickly. So any cooling, maybe short term.
Yep, yep. There's the water temperatures, by the way. The litmus test is 80 degrees. Anything above 80, and you've got sufficient water fuel. And I spy with my little eye 84, 83 in the coolest spot, 84, 85, 86. So we've got what it takes to get tropical stuff going. Once the atmosphere wants to set up for that, right? Once we rid ourselves of that broad Saharan dust layer, you're going to see it get going. You're absolutely, mid to late July, we know in our long range forecasting,
Hmm.
Jeremy, we know that we're going to be entering into a more active pattern. And once that happens, assuming the Saharan dust starts tapering, that's when we
Right.
get busy. That's when we start to
Yeah,
get
we've had
busy.
pretty much a month of dust.
Yep.
It's been very dusty out there. And then the two storms that we did have, even though they were short lived, they were on the edges or eluded that dust. So that's where they formed. We had one down there for our southern Gulf, Bay of Campeche, and also in sort of that north central Atlantic area. So they formed, they avoided the dust. And once we get rid of the dust and we get into a little better part of the weather pattern, we
Yeah.
may start to see this activity ramp up.
One thing that I was just thinking, and maybe of it. I feel like we've never discussed it. Is like, where can we find archive of the Saharan dust? Like, when has it typically started and shut down? Have you found anything like that? Because you mentioned a month, and it's like, I know it's usually about a month-ish, but like, where's the data on that, you know?
Right. And then we typically then kind of sometimes see it come back,
Right.
maybe in like August at
Yep.
some point or
Yep.
something like that. I feel like we generally get a couple waves of it, but this one seems like it's been a little more widespread
Yeah.
and a little longer lasting.
Yeah, it's been a ton of that dust. So I'm not complaining, but I do know that eventually it's going to shut down. And once it does, it seems like every
Right.
spot thus far, Jeremy, that there hasn't been dust and the Madden Julian oscillation has gone in phase, things have wanted to pop,
Right.
right? Like that's
Like the Eastern Pacific. I
right.
mean, it has been crazy
Right.
active there.
Right, right, and there's no signs of weakening. There's no signs of that stopping. So,
Right.
yeah, 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 yeah. All right. So look, that's kind of all I've got. I think that when it comes to what's going to be of watch, of note these next couple of days, thankfully it's not something significant. It's something to watch. I'm taking it, and when I'm broadcasting, I'm telling my audience, Jeremy, it's another subtle reminder, another subtle opportunity for us to know hurricane season is here. And these next few weeks, we're going to gradually ramp up that intensity of tropical development. And so that's why now is the time to be checking your safe room, checking all of your supplies, your plans,
Right.
all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, and if you say you have a generator, which a lot of us do now after the last several hurricane seasons,
Yeah,
make sure that's in working order. Don't wait until your power goes out and it's raining or it's windy, and then you got to go mess with that.
right.
Better to just take an hour, kind of test it out ahead of time, and let it run for a little bit, and you should be all set.
I know for here at the station, we run. I mean, it's a big generator, right? But
Yeah,
I think they run it like once a week on Wednesdays, just to get the stuff going. You've got a generator. How often do you work yours?
not enough.
See,
I
I mean,
got
but that's a struggle. I'm sure it's an ordeal.
right. Yeah, I mean, I said so. What happened was last year with Helene, lost power, had to endure that for roughly 48 hours, which, again, in the grand scheme of things, we got off pretty easy here in terms of our power outage because there were some people that had it out for 1 or 2 plus weeks and it was
Wow,
hot.
wow.
So Then shortly after that, once things calmed down a little bit and before Milton got kicking around down in the Gulf, I did buy a generator, got it set up. So now it's just a matter of I need to follow my own advice and just get it tested out. But I did set it up.
Well, we all can learn from each other, right? You are not a perfect been this guy's friend for a while. He's not a perfect person. None of us are. But we can take this opportunity. Even why can't you and I take this opportunity and say, all right, what do we have? What do we need to get ready um, for our hurricane season? Because we also know that when things are busy, where are you and I? What are we doing? Right? I have a feeling I know the answer to that.
Right. We're stuck at work, and that's what it was last year. It was like Helene went through, power was out. I had debris all over my yard. Had to figure out, okay, who's gonna come put some shingles on my house that
Yep.
blew off in the storm,
Yep.
and then I got to go to work.
Yep. Yeah, that's that's the way it goes. So we've got to do our stuff as well. So anyway, Debbie says I try to run my generator every 6 months. That makes sense. Do you have anything else, Jeremy? I think that's it for now.
Yeah, so we'll hopefully get through the holiday weekend. Maybe a little jump in some rain chances in spots, and hopefully not a lot of wind. And then we can regroup next week, see where we're at.
That sounds good. All right, buddy. Thank you all for joining us. Listen, Jeremy, I appreciate always doing this with you. Look forward to doing it again on Tuesday. No special reports. We don't need anything developing to the point where we need to do a
No,
special tracking the tropics, please.
no, hopefully not.
Yeah. All right. From sunny Central Florida, I'm West 2 meteorologist Eric Burris.
And in Savannah, Georgia, I'm WJCL 22 Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Nelson.
Thanks everybody for joining.